conversation. Great. So thank you everyone for joining Grow North today. We're doing our ARPA Lunch and Learn series for all of our different communities to understand some of the possibilities inside of ARPA. It's very confusing for smaller communities to understand what we can do, but we want to take the opportunity before final guidance is out. I do want to stress that we all know that the final guidance is not out, and these are just suggestions for right now. But we have Cheryl Detrick from NewCap on today. She oversees so many of the different counties in our region. And there are ARPA specific items that we can do for housing. And then there's a couple of things that are already available. A timely email, Cheryl, that I just got from one of our UW extension officers is talking about the rental moratoriums that are going to be coming up. And perhaps we can touch on that, what communities can do right now for that. But I'm just going to hand this over to you. She is our special guest speaker for today, so we'll really take the opportunity to do that. You can introduce yourself and obviously NewCap for the people who don't know. And then, you know, I'm sure we'll have some time for Q&A. And really thank you for taking the time to be here.
Absolutely. Thank you, Brittany. I really appreciate the invitation. I'm Cheryl Detrick, and I'm the president and CEO of NewCap. We are the federally designated community action agency serving 10 northeastern and northern Wisconsin counties. If you start off our northeastern, we go Vilas, Oneida. I'm doing this way, so I go Forest, Florence, Oneida, Oconto, Marinette, Menominee, Shawano, Langlade, Brown, Vilas. That's how I get my 10. So those are the 10 counties that we serve. NewCap's been the community action agency since 1965. We're in various, I would say, states of engagement in our various counties. We have physical offices in Green Bay here in Brown County, in Oconto, in Marinette. We just opened a satellite office in Crivets for our transportation programs. We just opened a satellite office in Rhinelander for housing services and navigation coaching for our whole family approach that we're transitioning into. We have an office in Eagle River that's primarily healthcare, but also has space for our housing programs to meet with clients up in that area. And Crandon, we have an office in Crandon as well. We are, I just got board approval to go to the next step of negotiations to open a full site in Shawano County, actually in Shawano. It's the old Shawano County Lakeland Industries building. It's been vacant for a number of years, and we have an accepted offer. Now we're just getting all the financing and all of that and planning commissions and those types of things together over in Shawano. We will move into that community hopefully in the next 4 or 5 months as we do construction on that building. So NewCap, if you're not familiar with us, we are a locally owned nonprofit agency, locally managed, I should say. We're not really owned, we're a community organization. We have in our bylaws, a 30-member board, and I'll call attention to some of that in just a minute for an ask that I have. But we have our board structure is what's called a tripartite board. It was baked into community action from the inception of community action back in the 1960s. The concept is that we have national poverty statistics and some national poverty programs, but really all poverty is local. So all answers to poverty are local. So our board is engaged in our communities. Our board structure is set up that we'd like to have 3 representatives from every county we serve, which is how we end up with a 30-member board. 1/3 are publicly elected officials. 1/3 are standard private board members that you would be used to from any organization you're involved in. And then the other 1/3 is what makes us unique. So 1/3 of our board, by original statute and by our founding documents, are consumers, so those that we serve. We don't work from a top down that we tell people how to address the issues with their lives. Our communities and the people we serve tell us. So we do every 3 years, we do a triennial community needs assessment, much like healthcare does. And then we address the needs in our communities and then see either what do we need to do, what partnerships do we need to create, how do we address the needs in our communities. Unfortunately, in Wisconsin, we are a year off cycle with most of the health systems. The health systems are usually do theirs the year after ours is done. So it's a little off cycle, but we try and take into account what they've already learned and see how do we merge that into ours and then give them our data as well. So we do everything from basic needs, food, housing, transportation, all the way through. We do energy services. We do weatherization in 5 counties and 5 tribes. We don't serve the Northwestern region, and we don't serve Oneida, Vilas, Langlade, but we do serve Forest. We don't serve those 3 counties for weatherization. We do the kind of down the eastern border. So those are some of our major programs we do, but we also have 2 programs that we have a home buyer program that we can help folks with down payment assistance for homes. And we have a business startup program. So we can help people who are low and moderate income to start a business. And I come from the Chamber of Commerce world and a family of entrepreneurs. And I know that if you're really going to give a family control of its economic future, you help them start a business and then help them be successful at that. So we have that program as well. We are very, very heavily engaged in the housing world, however. So we NewCap is what is called a housing first organization. And housing first is a model which states that the first thing is to get people housed. If people are on the streets, they can't address any of the needs that they're facing, because survival is, of course, the #1 topic on their mind and in their hearts. So housing first is you get people housed and then you offer them services. I always say if NewCap wasn't a housing first agency, we would still do housing first. I know that we can move no one from poverty to opportunities and economic security if they're on the street or if they're unstably or unsafely housed. And one of the ways that we enhance community development is work on the housing needs in a community, anything from housing programs, so moving folks from homelessness to housing programs, and then transitional housing and into permanent housing, or housing development, which we are engaged in as well. NewCap owns 16 duplexes in O'Connell Falls, and Wasaki, and we just held our topping out ceremony for our first low-income housing tax credit project, and that one's in Marinette. It's a 45 unit. We'll start occupancy in October or early November. It's 45 units. We opened up for applications a week ago, and we have 48 applications. So we know that that's just a drop in the bucket for what Marinette needs, and we know we need to look at our other communities. We're having conversations with Shawano about a Hometown Heroes program, which would be building homes for people who are teachers, nurses, county and city employees, firefighters, veterans, police officers, so first responders, that they would need to stay in the community for 5 years and stay in that type of a role. And with that, they would get 25% or 25 to 30% of their home over 5 years. The down payment assistance we give them would be forgiven in a grant. So it encourages folks to stay in the community. I was telling Shawano County that, look, we'll tie them for 5 years. After that, you guys get to keep them. You have to do your magic to keep them as employees and as workers. So we're working on that with Shawano County, looking at some of our other counties as well. Some of the other things that we're doing, and Brittany mentioned that the eviction moratorium expires Saturday. We're very concerned about that. Wisconsin was kind of a leader of the pack when it comes to emergency rental assistance. Last year, the governor and the administration of the state of Wisconsin set aside a significant amount of money. I think we initially set aside $15 million for what was called the Wisconsin Rental Assistance Program. Started June 1st and ran through mid-November, because that's where the funding ran. And we served in our region 817 families in that 5-month period. That was a maximum of $3,000 per family, $1,000 per month. Then in December, the funding from the federal government came out for the emergency rental assistance program that goes through Treasury, and then that was expanded in with the ARPA money in March. We manage the program here in Brown County. Brown County is an entitlement community because of the over 220,000 residents. We manage that program here. We also do the program in our other 9 counties It's just one's done through Brown County and the other one's done through the state of Wisconsin. So the first thing I would tell you that regarding that eviction moratorium is please, please, please get the word out to send people to us. They can go directly to our website, newcap.org, or they can contact us. And in a minute, I will find the 800 number because I always forget what it is. But I'll get you our 800 number as well. People can call us. We can get them into that program. We have received a special allocation of staff funding from the state of Wisconsin to cover someone to work with landlords who have filed evictions in our communities, to reach out to landlords and say, hey, if this is just a financial, that you have somebody who's behind on rent, we have a program that could help. Would you be willing to work with us and take that rental assistance? And we can, because we can go up to 15 months total with that program. So we could, and then with the ARPA funds, it's an additional 3 months. So we could go 18 months to help people and help them get back on their feet. And then we do bundled services to, if they're not employed or if they're employed that in a job that doesn't pay their rent, that we can help them with those types of other supports to help get them back on their feet, so that when these funds end, they're able to pick up their rent on their own. But we're have the ability to reach out to landlords, because we have the, as they file for evictions, reach out to them and say, hey, if this is just financial, can we help, you know, keep this person from having an eviction on their record? Have you be made whole? Because if somebody can't pay their rent and they're behind 6 months or longer or something in their rent, the landlord can have all of the judgments they want, but the reality is they're probably not going to get that money back, where we can make them whole within days. So we are doing that outreach, but there is a tremendous amount of money in the system. So please let folks know if you know of anyone who is experiencing financial difficulty and struggling to pay their rent, or if you know landlords who aren't getting their rent, if they reach out to us, then we can do that intermediary and get those funds out. So that's the first thing that ARPA has in it for our communities. The second thing, and we're doing this in Brown County because Brown County did a special allocation for this, is a mortgage assistance program. One of the things we were deeply concerned about from the beginning of the pandemic last year was that you know, we got into June and there was this rental assistance money that came out, but there's been nothing for homeowners. Many lenders have been working with their buyer or with their homeowners, you know, doing forbearances and doing modifications, especially local community lenders. The big lenders have not done that. So we have some folks who are in trouble. So the mortgage assistance program will allow us to help with that. If your communities are looking at your plans for what to do potentially with funds that you may be getting under ARPA, and if the jobs plan, the American Jobs Plan comes through, we're hearing there may be more mortgage assistance in there. There is some conversation about seeing if they will allow a reallocation of some of the rental funds to help with mortgage. That's not done. We're having a lot of conversations at the national level. So we're hoping that that's going to happen for our other communities. So we can get funds out for homeowners. We do not need another foreclosure crisis, and we don't need folks made homeless by losing, you know, having their homes foreclosed on, especially when we don't have enough rental housing in any of our communities for them to go to. So those are a couple of things that we're looking at. Other things that we're waiting on the rules, the final regulations to come out. But with the ARPA funds, one of the things that were expressly stated from the beginning were to help people who are homeless. And so the two pockets that we're looking at are for homeless alleviation programs, and then also for affordable housing. And I know that many of your communities are getting very small amounts, so we'd have to figure out what might happen there. And be more than happy to work with you in your communities, that as you identify the needs and identify what you could possibly do, that we're glad to help in any way that we can. That's things that we do in our communities. But one of the things so two things we would consider is if you have a homeless population that isn't yet served, then there's some funds in there that could be used to, one of the examples I said is buy a motel and turn it into non-congregate shelter. I know that I don't know of any, maybe one of our communities off the top of my head has a motel sitting around that somebody's not using. But if there's something that could be used for that, then if there's anything we can do to assist, we're here to help with that. 2 years ago, we started a construction company. It's called NewCap Builds Community. And we started it pretty much out of frustration because so many of our clients were eligible for the community development block grant funds to repair their homes and make their homes, safe and habitable, but they couldn't get contractors to return their phone calls because contractors even 3 years ago were too busy. So I used to own a construction company in a previous life, and I just said, fine, we'll do it. So we now have a construction company and we're working in many of our communities. So if you know of folks who are eligible for the community development block grant loan funding and they're having trouble getting, reaching contractors, then we are available, and we have some discount programs that we work on, but we also most of those programs, for all the administration of them, whoever the contractor is has to general contract the project, and you have to cash flow it until everything's done, and we're ready. We stood up to stand in that breach. So if there are things that we can do from a construction perspective, we're available for that as well. So without knowing what the final regulations are going to be, and then looking at very specific needs in communities, just Brittany invited me to let you know that we're here. We stand ready to help how we can. And when the final rules come out, and if you have community plans that you would like our assistance in, or even just like conversation as it relates to the needs assessments, we're available to do that. Our needs assessment, we'll do another one next year. So the one we did 2 years ago, in all of our communities, the #1 need was affordable housing. #2 need was employment and training. And #3 was a tie between affordable, accessible healthcare, and especially mental health services, and transportation. So we have car buyer programs, and we have a number of services. So those are the top 4 needs that showed up. If your needs show differently, I'd love to hear those so we can help see how we can address those. The other thing I want to throw out is that I mentioned that our board structure is that the 3 board representatives per community. I currently only have 1 board representative from combined between Vilas and Oneida County. It's a consumer representative in Vilas County. So we are actively searching for board representation from Oneida and Vilas counties. So would love to throw that out here. If any of you are in those counties and would be interested in being on our board, would love to talk to you. So the mayor of Rhinelander is here. We'd love to have a local elected official. And then Brittany would love to talk to you, see if you're interested as well. So that would be my ask, because we're really trying to expand our board up in Vilas and Oneida County. Happy to answer any questions. I unfortunately, we just don't know till those rules are out,
Right, and we want to be very clear that the rules aren't out, but so many of our communities have questions, and this is a great place to start asking those questions. So if you are, I saw Mayor Chris, you just unmuted yourself. This is a perfect opportunity to fire away.
First of all, to be on the board, what days are your meetings, and do you do them Zoom?
We do, yes. So our board meetings are so we only meet 7 times a year. So our board meetings are in the even numbered months. So February, April, June, August, October and December. We also, but then we have one more that's in September. They're the second Thursday of the month at noon. And yes, we do Zoom. We try and get everybody together at least once a year. And we do that meeting up in the middle someplace, which is our board development day. It's either in June or in August, depending on what the board decides. This year it's in Kashina on August 12th. Gotcha. And we provide an iPad and all of that that's got the cellular SIM card in it. So to try to make it as easy as possible.
Thank you. Thursday can be a difficult day for me because I'll work at the hospital usually on Thursdays. So at this point, I'll pass right now.
Okay.
But
if you know of any other local elected officials who you think would be interested, would be good, please send them our way.
Yeah.
We'll continue the conversation because I think there's other opportunities. This is a great moment for the different elected officials and clerks on this call to ask questions about what you're already thinking about some projects. Brian Gochi is also from Lac du Flambeau tribe. So we have a tribal member as well sitting on the call. And so please ask away I think there's some real opportunities here. homelessness is not necessarily something that is directly addressed except for a specific number of nonprofit organizations. And how, and especially, I would say it's handled in city form and less in town form. It becomes really invisible in town form. What are some strategies around using, potentially using ARPA funds for that in the smaller communities, or are you thinking about that or had some strategies in the past?
We had some conversations with some small communities in Oconto and in Shawano regarding what we could possibly do. We manage the Community Development Block Grant Home Fund for the city of Marinette. And one way that we were requested from a couple of small communities is, is there a way that they could have us fiscally manage their funds, put those funds in one pool and answer it some way, because they're relatively contiguous to each other. So that could we handle, do something about shelter or more transitional housing rather than just shelter. Some of the traditional shelter models are that, it's basically safe sleep rather than getting folks sheltered, have them have a place that they can be every day if they need to be, having services be there so that we can help make those differences, so that we're not just moving them from the street to a shelter and back to the street again because nothing changes. So we have had some conversation with that, and that is something that we'd be willing to talk about doing. Our housing programs have grown into our largest programs here at NewCap, just because the need is so great.
Great. Other questions?
You had the list of contacts. Will we get those in email form afterwards? You had a phone number.
Yes.
Some outreach for the, thank you.
I'll get it to Brittany and then she can send it.
Absolutely. And we'll be putting this recording on YouTube as well for the plenty of people who couldn't join live.
The other question, if the city was to sponsor or champion this program for the evictions or whatever, is there a press release that you put out in other communities, given that it starts soon?
Yeah, we'll send you what we've been sharing out. And there's some additional media coming out this week. Actually on Friday night, Wisconsin PBS is their Here and Now episode is all about the eviction moratorium, and we'll be on there, but we'll make sure to get that press release and then also just all the contact information.
Thank you.
Okay.
Great. Other questions?
I don't have a question, but I just want to, I thought I'd put myself up instead of just having my name there. I've worked with Cheryl and NewCap on their 45 unit in Marinette, which was a lot of tribulation and a lot of hard work on the part of NewCap. But, she is a pit bull, and they have wonderful people in their organization that are mission driven. And so if you have an excuse to work with NewCap on something, do it, because you will have an ally that you will really appreciate. So I just want to give an endorsement for you, Cheryl, because I just think you guys do such a great job.
Thank you, Jim. Yeah, Jim. I generally don't give up. As Jim knows all too well. Poor WEDC. They got on my two-a-day call list there for a while.
Cheryl,
Zach, do you have any questions?
City Administrator in Rhinelander. I had a question for you, and I don't remember if you and I had exchanged correspondence in the past, but somebody from your organization and I tried to connect last fall around your, I think it's an initiative maybe in Marinette for housing rehabilitation and property maintenance. Maybe you can talk about that program.
Yes, we have. We were approached by Marinette County. The county administrator, John Lefebvre, approached us. So last year, I keep saying last year, but it wasn't, because throughout 2020, we started conversations in early 2019 about properties that the county has been taking on tax lien And then they've just been auctioning them back off, and the houses aren't in good condition, and they were just getting this cycle of then people wouldn't be able to do anything with them, and then they would just get in further disrepair, and then the county would end up with them on tax lien, and they would just, houses don't generally improve with age. So the county thought that they needed to do something different. So they approached us because they knew we had started this construction company and said, okay, if we were to set up a fund where we took the houses on tax lien, we provide them, we make them available to you, you go in and evaluate them and tell us, can they be salvaged? And if they can, what would it cost? And then what would the sale price then be at the end? What would market be? And then that way, and they had a fund that they could use to do the renovation piece. We do the work, then they sell them. The idea is hopefully to make money on them. And of course, that was before the real estate boom. So they're actually we had a couple that got delayed, and they're really glad now because they're going to make a lot more money on them than they'd anticipated. That wasn't the plan with the construction on it, but kind of what happened. So we've done, we're finishing the third one now. We have a fourth one we're looking at. Unfortunately, most of the houses they've taken were just unable to be saved, and they just needed to come down. So that's what we've been working on with them. We're getting ready. We're finishing our third one the end of next week. And then we have another one that we're looking at. So that is something that it improves communities. It gets those houses back. So it increases housing because it puts those properties back into saleable condition, and families live in them or individuals live in them. We did one that was an upstairs downstairs duplex, so that got that back going again. So good for the community. Did two units. The county covered their costs and actually made a little bit of money on it, and we were able to get those turned back around again. We have been talking to both the city of Marinette and Marinette County, and you can probably all imagine that there's some not conflict. There's different ways of looking at things from city government as opposed to county government, and the city would like the county to do some things, and the county saying, but they're in your municipal boundaries, and so we're trying to figure those things out. But for the they have a tremendous number of infill lots in the city of Marinette, and then there's some lots available in Marinette County. Originally, Marinette County had thought that if we tore down a house because it wasn't saleable or wasn't salvageable, could we put something else back up there? So now we're getting that lot back into service again. Their Marinette County Industrial Development Commission and they're just not ready to get into the development business yet. So we haven't engaged that with them. We are looking at doing that down in Shawano, though. They've got some, specifically in Gresham and Wittenberg, they have some municipally owned lots, and they know they need more single family housing. So we're talking to them about how that Heroes program I told you about, how that could work. So the program in Marinette is still in its beginning stages. I think it's working well. At the very least, the houses we know are salvageable. There's nothing owed on them once they take them on tax lien, and we can use whatever that amount is, get the houses in good condition, saleable condition, they be moved right into, and immediately have a positive impact on the tax base and on the surrounding properties to it, because most of these houses are sitting in neighborhoods that when one house the boarded windows go up or it's just sitting there empty, generally good things don't happen. So we're working on that, and we're more than happy to talk to other communities about that as well.
And so do you contract with them directly, either entity,
Yes.
county or city? Okay.
Yes, we have a direct contract with Marinette County. I'd be happy to share that with you, Zach.
Yeah, it might be something for us just to explore. The topic has come up here, and again, capacity internally is thin. So looking at potential partners such as yourselves, if there's capacity, that would be interesting to us. And then do you know offhand if the county there waits 5 years to take them back on tax roll or take them on tax lien, or do they do it quicker?
I think it's 3 years.
Yeah. Okay. 5 years in Oneida County, that seems quite excessive, because by 5 years, there's a lot of 5 years of compounding issues.
Right. If there's a roof issue or a plumbing issue, something like that you get 5 years out. And that's what was happening in Marinette County. They would get them on, even on 3-year tax lien, they would auction them off. Somebody thought this was this great thing they were going to get into, and everybody's seen Fixer Upper, and they think they're just going to go in and do a couple things and sell them and make all this money. And then they get into them, and then they realize, oh my gosh, there's way more to this than I thought there was going to be. And then they don't do anything with it. And then now it goes another 3 or 4 years down the road. And so, yeah, I think 5 years gets to be lengthy, but
Great. This is all very important information. I think, you know, a couple of the communities that are on this call are trying to figure out housing needs without a housing authority. Rhinelander is in a little bit of a different position. I do want to express to those on the call that Grow North has an active housing committee. NewCap is moving over into this western edge of their area. So they'll be more active as things go forward. If anyone on this call is not part of that housing committee conversation and would like to be part of that to start having strategies for your community, please reach out to me and we can have that conversation. Any other last questions from individuals on this call? Great. Well, given that this is a preliminary conversation, I hope this was food for thought, even about items that can be done now rather than waiting for ARPA. Perhaps these are tools that are really important to be understood even before we think about the strategy about programs around ARPA. I know that I even learned a little bit, and that's always a really exciting thing for me. I'm a lifelong learner. So next week, we're going to be talking about looking at ARPA through the lens of the caveat that a community can allow an organization to do the work, so nonprofit or a related organization. We actually have Brian Gochi on this call. He's been in listening mode, but he will be talking about what Lac de Flambeau did with the CARES Act funds. They set up a grant program. They are likely going to be doing something very similar with ARPA. So he's going to talk about how communities around the Northwoods can do something very similar with their trusted organizations. That's the last of our early ARPA Lunch and Learns. We're going to wait for the guidance to come out, and then we'll definitely revisit this once we have clarity around what ARPA can and cannot be done. We haven't touched on my personal baby, which is broadband. I do want to make sure that everyone's thinking about that, as it is certainly a hot topic. There are certainly items that are part of that. We also have an active regional broadband committee that is finally being formed. So if you do not have representation, please make sure that you're part of that conversation. Email me again. There are certain things that we have from clarity from being really active in the task force on broadband for the state. And I'm hoping that that real clarity can help us in the Northwoods get clearer. And, you know, I've already recently heard about some of the items that are, you know, some of the communities that have done the last grant cycle. So there's some really exciting things that are on the list. So any last call for questions? Well, thank you everyone for the time. We'll make sure to give information, especially about the rental moratorium, as quickly as we can. This will then go on YouTube so that you can have part of that to share out with other people who weren't able to attend, especially your elected officials. If this is something that starts to creep up, this is a nice 30-minute conversation that they can listen to. So thank you, everyone. Thank you for eating lunch with us. One last Lunch and Learn next week. And yeah, so thank you and have a great afternoon. And Brian, we can stay on.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Great, thank you.